Somebody call a doctor.
They want a bigger logo. You can't handle a bigger logo.
G'day, this is the Dr. Branding Podcast. I'm your branding Dr. Frank. The surgery is open. Let's answer our next patient's question. Today it comes from Taylor in the US of A. Taylor asks, I'm getting into brand strategy and want to know more about positioning. Is it just posturing against a competitor to be the better choice? Or is it more? And how do you develop an effective positioning strategy? Taylor, thank you for this question. Glad to hear another person getting into brand strategy and talking about positioning rather than it being about values and purpose and mission and vision and personality. Because I think this is a big part of what brand strategy can be, is positioning. So, diagnosis. Positioning, what is it? Positioning is making sure that your brand has a known position in the market so that your brand comes to mind when a consumer is considering what it is you have to offer or the type of offer that you do offer in the range of options that they have in front of them. Do they consider you first? Do you come to mind when they think of that service or product that they need? As an example, I want a cola drink. Do I think of Coca-Cola? Do I think of Pepsi? Do I think of LA Cola or all the rest of them out there, the no-name brands? That's positioning. What's the one that is most thought of for that customer to think of? And the reason they think of it as well. You know, if it's, I need to blow my nose, okay, I need a Kleenex. That's positioning. You know, they're solving a need, coming to mind for a certain use case, for the thing that you offer. That's effectively positioning. So, as a prescription for how to develop an effective positioning strategy, let's answer the first part of brand strategy here that Taylor is asking in terms of positioning is it just posturing against a competitor? Yes, it can be. That can be one part of how you position against a competitor. By saying we are fresher, we are cheaper, we are more premium, we are more available to you, we're in more locations, we're always on the shelf kind of thing. That can be how you can position against a competitor, being the better choice. That can be one way of positioning, yes. But it can also come down to this other factor of coming to mind, being available so that someone does consider you over the plethora of options out there. And that positioning needs to be something very simple, very easy to understand, and very much broadly applicable across your brand and business offerings. So, you know, you can develop products based on this positioning, products and services. You can show up in certain places based on this positioning. So if it's in a supermarket or e-commerce store or out in the street, handing out stuff, you know, having a stall, whatever it is. But positioning for, you know, a reason to buy as well. You know, is it thirst? Is it hunger? Is it cosmetic? Is it going on a holiday? Is it going to your sporting game? You know, is it playing sport? All these things that you can be positioned as is something that we want to have consumers think of when considering all the options they have on the table. Because there's most likely going to be more than one option that they can choose, and you're one of them. If you're a real estate agent, if you're a cafe, if you're a product on the shelf, more than likely than not, there is a comparable alternative to what it is you offer, or you can raise the stakes and create your own shop front where it's just you and there's no other competition. They're just considering what you have in the store and picking something in there that works for them, be it clothing, and apparel, things like that, jewelry, what else could be? Any other kind of consumer product, or potentially a service where you are the one that comes to mind because you are the one that someone follows on Instagram or LinkedIn, let's say, and they're in the back pocket. You're in their back pocket for the time when they go, oh, I need that branding person, or I need that healthcare provider. when I think of them, I'll pull them out. And that's the person that's going to be my go-to when in need. But you need to be in front of them first. We need for them to think of us first. And this is where we need to be available to make sure that positioning works. But before I get to that, some very simple ideas of how to get your positioning to where it needs to be is looking at the things that you're most likely going to be remembered for. And it only needs to be, say, 3 things. It could be 1, but let's say 3 things. And the reason I say 3 things is that there's a marketing professor out there. His name's Mark Ritson. I bring him up a lot on my content. You might have seen a bit of content about this that I've shared on Instagram and on LinkedIn in the past. He talks about 3 brain cells. Out of the 8 billion brain cells that we have in each of our brains as consumers, as customers, what if you could only occupy 3 tiny brain cells? Because your brand isn't a big thing to a consumer, to a customer. They're really tiny little things that don't really mean all that much to people. They're not as important as they are to you as the brand owner. So what 3 things could you occupy in somebody's mind if you could? Could it be your color so that they do recognize you when they see you? And this is why I kind of get down to the root of trying to pick one distinct color or a combination of 2 to 3 at most colors that can stand out significantly for someone to distinctly identify. So that's one thing, is color. Another thing can be a message. A great one that's going around at the moment is should have gone to Specsavers. Geez, I balls that up. Should have gone to Specsavers. Specsavers' tagline at the moment, their slogan, let's say. That's something to really remember is, well, I've got a need for glasses. My current glasses are stuffed, or I'm in a situation where I really should have had glasses to be able to see this thing happen, just like the ads show. I should have gone to Specsavers. Who am I going to think of when I need glasses next? Specsavers. Because they're the ones that have been in front of my peripheral telling me, choose them. And then the next thing can be the offering itself, the distinct quality of either, say, the packaging or the use case that comes to mind when they are in need of it. I gave the example before of a Kleenex, a tissue. Comes in a rectangle box, typically. And they do have other packets, obviously. But typically in that rectangle box, tissue comes out the top. Pioneered that. There's many copycats since, whatever. But that is synonymous with the brand Kleenex. That's the one brand that does come to mind for that market. There are plenty of others out there, obviously, in many different countries. But Kleenex has been a bit of a dominant one, especially in the Western world. So there's 3 things that you could be remembered for. That's really all positioning needs to be. Because at the end of the day, all we're doing positioning for is to make sure that the customer chooses you. That's brand strategy, is to give somebody a compelling reason to choose you over others. And that's your hunch, is what am I going to do that I believe will get customers' attention to want to choose me over others? That's all brand strategy really is. How can we then do that? How can we effectively go out and do that? Tactically, you go out and make your logo and your colors and your messaging and all the other bits and pieces of your brand identity. You go out and do your marketing, you create your product, you create your packaging, you do your pricing, you place it in certain places to make sure that that positioning is working for you. And that's all positioning really needs to be. Keep it really, really simple to create an effective positioning statement or some kind of ethos, a North Star. I've even heard of it being one word. One word. That's how simple it could be in terms of your positioning. Again, this was an example given by Mark Ritson in a talk. It was fantastic. You can find it on YouTube. If you go to, what was it called? If you search Mark Ritson's name in YouTube, it was a talk he gave in Melbourne. I can't remember it. I'll link it in the show notes. It's a really good talk. But he talked about this example of a Swiss watchmaker brand called Hublot. Hublot. You might be aware of it. It's a luxury watch brand. And for many years, they made these fantastic watches, obviously. Swiss are very much known for their watches. There's much competition out there, obviously. But how can you position Hublot for something to be known for and then also then develop and guide your business to develop more and more products based on some kind of positioning statement? they picked one word, and it was based on their CEO at the time. His name is Jean-Claude Bivet, and he picked this word that was fusion. And there was a particular product that I think might have been the inception point for it, but it was a watch that had a gold face, but a rubber strap. And back in the 80s or 90s, this is quite provocative at the time. You know, a luxury watch with a rubber strap. What? What is this? But the way that he described it was to say that, you know, rubber is organic. It comes naturally. It's from a tree. There's nothing, you know, all that ostentatious about it, obviously. But it's that fusion between something that's luxury and gold and something like rubber. Something that you never really see together. And you've never seen it before since the Big Bang. And so they called this watch the Big Bang. It's this fusion of two things coming together to be their positioning. One word, fusion. It's fantastic. You know, it's not something that you need to have as that benchmark of what's the word that comes to mind. But to give you an example of two words I did with a client of mine. And forgive me for the name of their brand. I make no apologies for their brand name. I think it's fantastic. That's why I worked with them. But Michelle, her name is from Cunty Cards, Kunty Kards. She sells greeting cards. Nice paper greeting cards that have elegant writing on the front of them, but it's using swear words in this elegant writing. And it's this polar opposite kind of thing, two things coming together, a bit like fusion in a way, but it was a way of getting a reaction. And it could have just been one word as reaction, but we made it branded and we called it a Cunty reaction, a Kunty reaction. Because when somebody opens her product, be it the person that buys the card to then give it on to their loved one or person of interest that they're giving the card to, when they open it, they're greeted by the card face, which has obviously the profanity on it. So it's like happy birthday BITCH or happy birthday CUNT. And that creates a reaction that someone's not expecting. But typically when they send a card like this to somebody, it's usually to somebody that will get the joke. And it creates a connection point between somebody that creates some happiness or some outrage maybe. But there's that connection point that someone can have as a reaction. To bolster this as part of the product is that when you open the card, you're greeted by an absolute shit ton of confetti. KUNTFETTI. Her own branded confetti. All in her brand colors, spilling out everywhere. And this isn't just for the recipient of the card, it's also for her customer that buys the cards from her. So they get that Cunty reaction as well. And that was the whole emphasis of this brand that we developed together to make sure that whatever Michelle then produces with her business, that it always comes back to this idea of a Cunty reaction. And it's the same thing in her content that elicits that reaction that's not going to be for everybody. That's okay. But it's creating a reaction. One of the nice little features that we also created was this little business card that she wanted to give people in their package, like a little business card type of shape. And on it, it said like something like, you are loved. You are, seen. I see you. I love you. Please pass this on to somebody else to help brighten their day as well and give a great reaction too. And that for me was like, damn, that's something that just goes above and beyond the experience, but allows someone to keep giving the experience onto somebody else to have that connection point to create that reaction and then find out about the cards and then they get that Cunty reaction all over again. But that's an example of positioning, is being known for that. Doesn't need to be explicitly known as that's what the positioning is, but it can come through in your messaging especially. And I think this is a good way of communicating your positioning, other than looking premium. Let's say if you want to be this premium, a luxury brand, let's say, other than how you look and the materials and the finishes and all the rest of it, that can be one way you position. But the messaging can be a big part of that. There's an insurance company here, NRMA, and so NRMA, and their positioning is very clear. It's HELP, help. We're here to help, and that's all it needs to be, and that's just communicated in their messaging. The letters of their logo change from NRMA to HELP. It's really nice, and that's all it needs to be. It's really simple, effective communication to say we're here to help. If you want help, choose us. And they're a very well-established brand. They've been around for yonks. That's really working for them as well. But to make sure that they're positioning themselves in people's mind with their blue branding, they got this really nice blue branding that's very vibrant, like this royal blue that you can't miss. Very distinct logo, been around for years. These letters, acronym, I don't even know it's an acronym, but NRMA, I think it stands for something, but this HELP, really, really nice and simple. And that's how you can position, communicating it through your messaging is a way that gets people on board to understand what you're trying to be remembered for, to be this type of business, to be this type of brand, so that people understand what it is you're trying to offer that might be better than others. And you can do this through value propositions and selling propositions of saying, this is what we offer and this is what benefit you're going to get out of it. This is a reason why to choose us over somebody else. You can be as explicit and be a competitive brand where you use your messaging to position yourselves against a competitor. And typically number 2 type brands do this. Avis was a great example of this a few decades ago. We always try harder because we're number 2 against, I think it was Hertz or Budget, whoever was the biggest, whoever was the biggest at the time. We try harder because we're number 2. Like, that's a great little message to say that we are doing more to be better for you because we aren't number 1 at the moment. It's just a great way of communicating what you're trying to do to signal effectively that you might be a better choice, that you're doing more. You're not resting on the coattails of being number 1 and all the rest of it and resting in your laurels. You're doing more to be better. So there's a few different ways you can position. It really comes down to the type of business that you are, be it a product, be it a service, but you need to be able to, once you've developed an effective positioning strategy, what you think is best, what you think you can be known for most, there is a requirement then in terms of this prescription here to make sure it is communicated in whatever fashion it can be it the messaging, be it your visuals, be it your advertising, be it your connection points, your customer interactions, face-to-face, over calls, all those things that make sure that positioning comes through and plays out in every day-to-day engagement that you have with a customer. Be it a potential customer, an existing customer, a returning customer, whoever it might be, so they keep you in their back pocket to think of you when needed. Because at the end of the day, you're going to see advertising as a consumer all day, every day. You're not going to need 99% of it. But there's going to be 1% that you're going to go, oh, I like that. But at the end of the day, you probably don't need it right now. There's going to be a day that you do. You want to go on holiday. You might think of Expedia. Okay, when I want to go on holiday next, I'll look at Expedia so that next time, I'm on Google searching for a holiday, I'm just going to go to that site instead because I've heard of them, they seem like it's easy, and that's what I'm going to use. So this is where 97% of people aren't in the market for what it is you offer. It might even be more than that, or it might be a bit less. But that small percentage of people that are in the market for you do need something to think of. And that's going to be a long tail where your brand needs to have shown up several times before. You might get lucky on the first chance. Maybe there are impulse buyers out there, but they've probably been looking for something like this already so that you show up. Maybe if you've been, pretty clever with your Facebook ads, your Meta ads, where someone's searching for these keywords and you pop up as a result. That's why people think we're stalking, being stalked by marketing companies. But it's based on what you're searching. So you need to be present. You need to be always engaging with a potential customer base. You never know who it's going to be. They're always watching out there for the day that they do sit up and remember you and then go out and choose you. And the other part to it is, yes, being mentally available, being thought of first to make sure that positioning is working, but you've got to then be physically available. You've got to be available when they need it. You've got to be easy to find when they buy, when you are thought of, is it easy to remember you to then be able to Google search or search in TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever it is they found you? Are you able to be found again? And this is where a simple name can really help. A simple message can help. An easy web address can help. All these things to make it easy for someone to find you again and remember you time and time again. And that might just be a case of showing up more and more. The more you can, the more someone's likely to see you again, so that they do take notice and then go searching as a result immediately. But you need to be available. And it's the same thing on a shelf in a supermarket. If you're promoting yourself and you're not on the shelf in the supermarket where you said you should be, if you're in the local or national supermarkets, they go looking for you and you're not there, it's like, well, I'm going to pick something else. And they're going to have an experience with that brand, and that might be all that they need to keep going back to that brand, and you've missed your opportunity. This is where it comes back to mental and physical availability as a result of making sure that your positioning is effective. That might have been really complex. I'm just thinking about talking all about that. Please watch this back. Please listen to this back to make sure that you kind of understand where I'm going with this. And I do know that I obviously know how to do these things, and this is my day-to-day. But in terms of positioning, the thing I'll come back to is to make sure it's very simple. Base it on 3 things and live up to those 3 things and apply them to as many things as possible. And then show up as much as you can so that people do recognize you, do find out about you, do keep thinking about you, and then be available where and when they need you. Okay? That's positioning. That's how you effectively create your position and then put it out there and see it working. If it's not working and people aren't registering, then you know that the positioning isn't working, and this is where we want to come back to our brand strategy cyclically, so every year, maybe every financial year, every couple of years, to redress where you're at, see if it's working for you, and maybe pivot or expand the positioning to be something that is more broadly applicable so that your brand has the opportunity to grow further. Okay. I hope that helps. Taylor. It was a really great question to ask. I'm glad to hear that you are looking into brand strategy more and that positioning is something that is on your mind. So look, thank you again for the question. And for those of you listening, I do hope that helps you too. Please take a piece of brand candy, my free resource guide to do better branding that you can get on your way out at goodayfrank.com/candy. You can also make an appointment via that link if you have a brand related element that you would like some help with. And I will see you in the next appointment in the next episode. Bye everyone. Thanks for listening. The surgery is now closed. The Dr. Branding Podcast is hosted by Reagan Frank McCrill, that's me, and for legal reasons I want to be clear that I am not a registered or qualified doctor. The premise for this podcast is that it is a satirical analogy for branding consultancy to help others with their brand success. This podcast is also sponsored by my branding business, G'day Frank. Say g'day today by booking a call with me at g'dayfrank.com.